We're often on the forefront of the next technology. So people are interested in engaging at our firm because they may learn more than other firms. We also have a culture that is really rich because when you begin and interview people and select people and engage people based upon their person, not their skill only, but their person, then they recognize they're part of a community of architects.
Have you ever wondered what makes some companies grow while others plateau or fade away? Or what makes an inspirational leader versus someone who teams dread working for? On this podcast, the executive team at Thinc Strategy chat with business leaders who share their lessons and journeys, their strategies on growth and leadership, and how they're continuously thinking ahead. On today's episode, Thinc Strategy CEO Cindy Anderson and Thinc Strategy consultant Karen Albritton welcome Timothy Hawk, architect and president of WSA Studio. We start with Cindy Anderson on the importance of building the right team.
You know, it's so interesting because Tim has an amazing team. I think that one of your secret sauces in your leadership style, Tim, is how you let other people be great at what they do. And you're really clear about your role and what you play. Talk to us a little bit about what it's like to lead the kinds of talent that are around you and in an industry that is focused on designing buildings. I mean, that is a lot, it might be designing other things too, but that really, the people component is so important. How did you think about that, and how did you come to the place where you are today with the team that you have?
Yeah, so when we hire for attitude, less about the individual design prowess or skill, because I think that skill can be taught. Yes, there are people who have inherent creative gifts, but quite honestly, I guess there is a sort of a gut check threshold review of portfolios and such to make sure that there is that kind of passion and interest in design. But the differentiator is always who they are and how they'll be and how they want to practice. And so interestingly, I find that this is something that attracts really the brightest. Some of the most successful and brightest people are the people who are those who are I guess, truly engaged in a process that's more focused on the people. And so every day I come in, and each day I'm confronted by people around me who are all brighter than I am, which is, it's really good. But, you know, I recognize that I also have, I mean, they may in many ways, a lot of them are brighter than me in certain ways, but I also have my special skills too, right? So we each have our own secret sauce. And in the end, I think that's what makes it really interesting.
So, I think one of the interesting things about the architecture business in general is that there's a creativity to it. Mm-hmm. And having worked in some of the businesses that I've worked in, I've worked with creatives and that type of talent. And I wonder how that plays into to your culture.
Yeah. We actually kind of joke that we're a bunch of misfit toys. I mean, if I were to tell you about the people I get to work with on a daily basis, you would be blown away by the diversity of their skill sets that they hold. I mean, I'll just share one. One of my colleagues that I work with, Jeff, is an amazing tailor. So not only is he an architect who has this incredible ability to detail and connect and understand how buildings can come to life, also understand how to mentor others in this regard, he is an amazing tailor. And he's actually involved with creating costumery for, conventions. And he has a whole slew of people that he will work with to do these types of things. And that's just one story. So I have 35 other stories about just how interesting people are. Another one of our, emerging professionals is the type of person who out of the goodness of his heart, just naturally once a week goes into an elementary school and teaches and reads to children. Unsolicited, not like, this is not a corporate request so we could say we're, community oriented. This is just sort of who he is. I think a lot of the people I get to work with on a daily basis are people who see things with different perspective. They kind of look around the corner, and often many of us, including me, we were kind of the people who were like, in high school, you looked at us like, what's wrong with them? Like, I was well liked, and I had a lot of friends in high school.
I was going to say you were probably class president. I feel confident.
Yeah. So I was class president, but
I totally knew that.
But it took a long time for people to recognize the value that I brought to the table, because I did not fit the form that, I grew up in an Appalachian, Ohio town where, if you're a boy, you need to be on the football team. And the smart kids are kind of not necessarily the cooler kids, right? So for me to be accepted and be put in a position where people were having me be a leader was really hard to earn. And I think I have some special sort of personality traits that I get from my family that help me in this regard. But my point is, like, a lot of the architects and a lot of the most creative people are not people who are typically at the forefront of mainstream. However, we have the ability to understand and anticipate where things may be going. From an early day, a lot of my colleagues and I will talk about how we knew what would be fashionable earlier than other people. We were able to anticipate trends that would occur. Music. Often we were the people listening to certain types of music first. In college at Ohio State University, I went to Me and Mr. Mustard's, which is an alternative dance club, right? And a lot of my friends were, what are you going there for? It's the weirdest music. Well, I knew it was the music that was going to become, right?
One of the things that's most impressed me about you, Tim, is your active engagement in everything that you do. Not only in deciding to buy the company, you bought WSA by yourself. It wasn't like there were 5 other architects over there and you guys decided to do this together. You went to 2 people and said, hey, you went to the partnership and you bought them out. But you've also been very, very engaged at your industry level. You've had high level positions with the AIA, with the state leadership, the national leadership. You've done a lot of amazing things. What is that driver for you? What causes you to not just talk the game, but to get involved and be a man of action?
I think it's informed a lot by my background. So I'm a kind of a dreamer, and I've always wanted things to be better. When I was a kid, the activities I would do, we had a split level ranch home I grew up in, and I was the youngest of 4 by a lot. And I was always sort of like left alone. And I would play with Matchbox cars in the lower level of our house and sort of create these cities and sort of pretend like I was making things. I mean, who knew that I was going to be an architect, right?
Right. Probably would have been a good guess.
Yeah.
At least a city
I
planner.
also drew house plans. And my mom and dad thought I was a little crazy. Like, what? Go outside and play ball. Why are you drawing house plans? But the reason I bring that up is that I feel like I was like in a situation, and I had a really great family. We were really comfortable. I didn't want for anything, but I sort of wanted things to change. I wanted things to be better for people. I wanted people to have more interesting and easier access to success, because there is on the edge of Appalachia in Ohio, there are a lot of struggles. And in my time, many of our parents were getting laid off from the factory because of job loss to overseas industries, et cetera. So I really feel like it's that kind of background made me interested in helping make things better. And I just happened to have this interesting blend of skills that drew me to, I have a logical mind. I think I have attributes of positive communication through genetics. And my father was an artist and as well as a contractor. So I had this creative side that helped me. When you put all those things together, I really think it's sort of an attitude of wanting to help, wanting to, I don't want to say fix, but like, how can we make things better? How can we take any situation and improve it? And so that's sort of the initial drive. And then the other thing I would say is like what's led me to be a national leader in the AIA is my love and interest for others like me. And when I first got out into the profession, I realized we get kicked in the teeth quite a lot as architects. We have a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of risk associated with buildings. The process of making is a unique process each time. It's not like we're creating a prototype and it's being made in a factory. Every time you're relying upon a team of people who are new to the game, and they're trying to interpret what your interpretation was of a client's vision. And it's just really hard work. And I find I just love other architects. And I feel like I can do something to help our situation be better. I mean, that's also what brought me to teaching. I've been teaching architects for 25 years.
That's right. Tell us about that, because one of the things that has just really struck me when I first met Tim is he talked about architecture in a way that I'd never heard before. And he used this term called design strategy. And, I've heard, there are firms out there with strategy in their name and that sort of thing. But the way Tim talks about it, I'd really like for you to talk about what that means to you, because I do think it ties in your role in the AIA back to the role of WSA and how it serves its clients and how you have brought in the leadership that you've brought in, because you have a very unique perspective with design and the future of that design. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would also say, Cindy, that it's really informed by my educational leadership. So when you're interested in making things better and you're trying to make progress in that area, reaching out and mentoring and teaching is a way for you to learn. Volunteering and engaging with others is another way for you to learn. And there's so much I needed so much information so early. I took over and became the president of my company at age 39. I don't know what I was thinking. I had no idea. I mean, what was I thinking? I was just.
How old were your kids, right? They were probably little, right? And you're taking this chance?
Yeah, I think my oldest son was like 10, and my younger son was like 5. And I was sort of thrown into this position. And so teaching is a way for me to learn and also find ways for us to grow. And through that process, I've recognized that there are so many unique and important roles in the world of design and architecture. And the reason we discuss the idea of design strategy is we feel that there are talents within our organization and actually within the entire profession where people can actually help create change, not just around buildings alone, but about all the things that make place. So we've expanded our practice to include consultation on business strategy. How can let's say you're an organization and you want to try to migrate your organization to be much more collaborative because you need to have speed increased in your decision-making process, right? So you can't just tell people to be collaborative. You have to change their environment to do that. And so when we start to think that way, we can contribute to leadership teams where they recognize we're not just helping them with physical space, but we're helping them with organizational strategy. And it's sort of magical because the other thing it does is it allows our diverse viewpoints within our profession, each of those people can find their way. They can find a way to connect, right? So how do you take this group of misfit toys, these really interesting people who have their own gifts, and expand their contributions to be much more than just doing a building alone in creating edifice, but like how can they have an impact on people in a way that helps drive organizational strategy, change and evolve educational pedagogy. And we work in religious sector as well. Like, how do you change and look to the future of the way people worship? And we do, living spaces. Like, how do people want to live in the future? And so being a strategist in a broader way opens up so many doors for you to have so much more impact.
That's terrific. And I would imagine that helps you distinguish and differentiate your firm. One of the things that we often see with mid-sized businesses is you're large enough to really take on almost anything.
Right.
But you find yourself competing for talent and for clients with very large companies and also small startups or emerging growth companies. How do you think about differentiating and distinguishing your firm to compete at both ends of the market?
Yeah, I think that we have a network of engagement that creates a reputation for building architects. So that kind of helps people recognize that we're a good place. So when you've been around for 50 years and there's a lot of very successful people, like, one of my good friends that worked with me here for 10 years is now the university architect at Stanford, right? You don't get to be the university architect at Stanford without some kind of talent. And he spent 10 years working for WSA and sort of cutting his teeth at this place. So I guess my point is that we have a reputation that's built within the industry for building architects, for shaping practice, for shaping other people. And then through that, we also connect to understand we're often on the forefront of the next technology. So people are interested in engaging at our firm because they may learn more than other firms. We also have a culture that is really rich because when you begin and interview people and select people and engage people based upon their person, not their skill only, but their person, then they recognize they're part of a community of architects that is WSA. And they feel that they can have a voice. They can come to me or others and share their concerns or be a leader of change, even at a very young age. So those intangibles, I think, allow us to compete for top talent with firms that may pay them 10% more than we can because we're offering all of those intangibles. And the other thing I'll say is I could sit and list the number of people that I've worked with in years who are in positions of leadership at firms around the country. And every one of them is so thankful that they began their journey with us because they were sort of thrown into the deep end with water wings or whatever those things the kids wear when they can't swim.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't mean to bemoan my colleagues who have different strategies towards their firm, but a lot of emerging talent are not interested in working in one aspect or one corner of practice. They're interested in working comprehensively and having a larger impact because they're young, they're eager to learn. They have confidence in terms of what their mark might be on the world. And when you work at a firm like ours, you're going to follow a project from beginning to end. You're going to be able to sharpen your skills in all different aspects of design. And you're going to be able to fall down on your knees a little bit and figure how to come back up. And I think that kind of broad experience early in your career can really help you focus later in your career on what you're good at.
Yeah.
And back to one of Cindy's earlier points, I think that's the secret sauce in terms of our firm. And sort of my sort of calling is I'm really interested in helping us all figure out who we are.
The self-awareness and then how that plays with the group awareness, I think is what really impresses me with you guys is every time I talk with you or your team, I'm always hearing does a client think about that? What kind of you guys really take feedback and try to learn from others and not feel like you always have one answer. You're very thoughtful in the way that you listen. And so that leads us kind of to our final question, but I think a really important one for people to hear from you. How do you think ahead today with your business? The industry is changing so much. Architects have had their profit margins squeezed. They've had to deal with a remote work environment that doesn't necessarily lend itself to collaboration, and you've had to adjust to that. You guys, WSA has done that very, very well and successfully. But how do you think ahead for the future? What does that look like for you?
So I have a second graduate degree in history of art and architecture. And I believe what I do to think ahead is connect through literature, film, and art to broader cultural trends. And I'm an artist. I'm actually now represented by a gallery, which is really big for me.
Yay!
And,
All right,
That's
we've
awesome.
got to come and see.
Yeah.
This is in Columbus.
Yeah,
Can you
Yes.
tell us the name of the gallery? We'll put it out there. Everybody needs to see Tim's work. He is very talented. I have no doubt.
It's a Sharon Weiss Gallery here in Columbus, Ohio. And so anyway, my art and my reading, I'm not really reading business books.
Good for you. Good for you.
I mean, I think we have to understand the broader, the path we're on together as a culture and as a society. And through that, you'll pick up cues in terms of how you should shape your practice or change your business. And for instance, I feel like I've had early insight into what emerging professionals and all young people are interested in, which is something that's well beyond their own right now, something that's well beyond their own individual interests. A lot of the young people today are very interested in the collective. So if you're a business leader and you recognize there's a shift away from what my generation, which was we were interested in individual liberties, because quite honestly, we didn't have any. We sat in rows, we were told what to say, we were told what to wear, and we wanted individual liberties. So now we all have tons of individual liberties, and the young people are saying, yeah, but what about the collective? Are we treating everybody fairly? Is everybody getting the best chance? So if you begin to understand that culturally through reading, literature, gaining access to film, looking at art, art installations. Every time I go to Washington for the AIA, I go to the Smithsonian. I go to one of the galleries, and I see installations. I do the same thing in New York and here in Chicago. That kind of thoughtfulness, I think, in relationship to where culture is heading, informs the business decisions, informs strategy in terms of retention, informs our ability to then lead clients because we're creating the future for them through what we do.
That's terrific. What a great perspective, and I think a very different one from how many business leaders think about where they're going to get their next idea or their inspiration or their view into what's next. So, Tim, thank you so much for that. This has been really, really great. Congratulations on all that you've done with the firm so far, and best wishes for the future.
Absolutely. I mean, you've given us so much good advice. And I love the fact that as a business leader, as a business owner, that your thinking goes well beyond business or well beyond just the design of a building or just this or just that you have a really open-minded way of thinking about the world. And I think art and architect, for me, being a finance person in my past, you would think I love architecture. I love art. I love going to places where I can see that. I can never produce it. I could never replicate the kinds of things that you do, but I really admire it. And I really appreciate people like you that are fighting for it and really putting yourself out there. You've been a great leader on the national level for architects. I know you're very well respected, and we're honored that you would be here with us today and sharing your story, Tim, the Tim Hawk story, but also the WSA story as well. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so thrilled to have been a part of this, and I have a lot of the same admiration for what you're doing within our profession and broadly. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Think Ahead. We hope you've gained some valuable insight and inspiration to propel your business forward. Remember, success is not a destination but a journey, and Think Strategy is here to help you every step of the way. Visit thinkstrategy.com. That's THINC strategy.com for more info. And for more of this podcast, press the follow button and share with your network. This podcast is edited and produced by Earfluence. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon on Think Ahead.